Hi guys, it is Dom here from Soundsphere Magazine and Gimme a Whole Year. Just had a wonderful chat with Brian Myers, who talks about success, talks about legacy, talks about defending the Digital Media Championship in Impact Wrestling, training the likes of MJF and Max Caster. Thank you so much to Impact for the time. Thank you to Brian for his. Thank you guys for checking this out. We'll see you again really soon. Cheers. Brian, thank you for your time, mate. I really appreciate it. What have you been up to? How are you doing today?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. I'm up to a lot. Very, 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 very busy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Obviously, I start my interviews these days with some word association. Now, different people in your position have different definitions of success. You have traveled the world. You have wrestled for many different organizations. You have a very successful wrestling figure podcast. With all that said, how do you define success as a person and a performer if they are two different things?
To me, in my 37 years of wisdom, success is happiness, right? And that's it. I don't think a nice car or lots of money or whatever, that kind of, those tangible things, sometimes they're not going to do it.
Mm, mm.
You need to be happy with yourself and the people around you to be truly successful. And that's how I define success. And I think that starts, with loving yourself and doing what you love. You know what I mean? I try to apply that to my everyday life.
Absolutely. And obviously, people would assume, obviously, Impact makes you the happiest, which is great. Obviously, it's wonderful to be in Impact, I know. But what are the things that make you the happiest these days?
That would be my wife and my two children. That's what makes me the happiest. And obviously, my love of wrestling too, because I do what I love, so that keeps me being a happy person. So around them, I'm ultimately the best version of myself, right? So it's kind of like that's where I'm at, and where that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
Spend time with them, go on the road, do what I love. My passion is pro wrestling, and it's kind of like a win-win for me. I'm never not doing what I want to be doing or being with people I love.
Yeah, man. I'm so happy to hear that, man. And the second word association before we go into the Impact stuff and the wrestling is legacy. Now, obviously, you've built a reputation for yourself in various promotions. I wanted to ask you about your definition of legacy. Now, do you concern yourself with that word? Does it mean anything to you, or do you not bother with it?
Not at the moment, I guess. Not something I'm thinking about. My 5-year-old daughter just started to take interest in wrestling, which she previously hadn't at all. So she's been asking me so many questions. And then one of them she asked me recently was like when I was going to stop wrestling, and I was like, I don't really want to stop until at least I'm 50, and that's like,
Yeah.
and then even then I'll kind of assess the situation. So I got a long ways to go, before I can think about my legacy. I think ultimately what's important to me is that I think the respect of my colleagues, really. That's kind of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess it moves on nicely to my next question, which is, how would you say you've changed and developed? What would you say you've learned about yourself? Obviously, the gimmick, various gimmicks over the years. Obviously, the podcast as well. Yeah, what have you learned about yourself as a person from the beginning of your career up until this point?
Well, I mean, for sure, being married and having kids will mature someone. So I've
Mhm.
matured greatly, since I started wrestling. I mean, and I've been wrestling since I was 18. So that I would hope I matured since being 18 years old. And then I think that the biggest thing for me is not losing my mind about things I can't control,
Right.
and I think that's can be frustrating in a predetermined, industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say all the time, I'm a massive New York Mets fan. If I'm the best hitter on the Mets, I'm gonna play every single day. That's just the way it goes. It doesn't matter if I'm a dick or so and so doesn't like me or this or that. I'm gonna play. Wrestling's not always like that. You know what I mean? Sometimes the politics went out, and you can't change certain things the way things are done, and that's something that I've learned to kind of roll with the punches about.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that, obviously, again, your learning experiences, you are involved in training a lot of wrestlers, some of the biggest names in wrestling today as well. What are the key lessons that I guess you would tell the things that you wish you could have told yourself when you started your career that now, whether it's a political thing, the politics and the backstage side of it, or it's an in the ring thing. What are the key things, one or two key lessons that you would tell yourself now if you had the knowledge back then? If that
I
makes
don't
sense.
know. There's so many things, and I'm not a person that lives in like hindsight, like
Right.
coulda, woulda, shoulda. I just, everything. I'm pretty set in that everything happens for a reason, and all my downfalls were learning experiences and things like that. So I think that would be the main thing that I would tell young guys. Use your downfalls as learning experiences, but the real downfall would be quitting, or stopping. I mean, if you keep putting in the work, it's gonna win out. Hard work at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, whether it's wrestling or some other real life adventure that you're into, like that's gonna make a difference. So putting your best foot forward every day will pay off in the end, and I really believe that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I guess, you're getting rewards for your work. Obviously, we'll talk about the digital media title in a minute, but you're a bit of a digital media entrepreneur. You have obviously the championship in Impact, but you're also a podcaster and stuff as well. Now, a lot of, you'll know a lot of wrestling fans that have their own podcasts, a lot of performers have their own podcasts, and also try and run other careers alongside that. So what kind of tips have you got for anybody who has that entrepreneurial spirit? Because I'm curious to see how you manage your days, because it sounds like not one day is the same. You could be
It's
doing
not.
yeah. So tell me about that kind of
uh,
that balancing all of your
uh,
different responsibilities.
well, to be honest with podcasting, when we started, I was a fan of podcasts. I would always listen to Cole Cabana's,
Mm.
kind of groundbreaking podcast, and at that time, Stone Colds and people like that had it that I enjoyed. But to be honest, Smart Mark Sterling, who's AEW uh, manager and one of my students, he helped us from day one and became the producer. And literally in one of our first meetings, he said the death of a podcast is inconsistency. He's like, if we say this is going to be out every Friday, it's going to be out every Friday. And honestly, in 4 years, we've never missed a deadline. We've always lived up to our promises, whatever, bonus episodes, things like that. And Matt and I and Mark, we've never missed. And I think that's been a big, big, big part of our success.
Yeah, yeah. I think obviously, you can see you've worked really, really hard with it. And I wanted to, before we talk about the digital media title and the feuds that you're doing in Impact, there's a lesson that I got taught many years ago, which kind of somebody said to me can kind of transcend multiple industries. And I think it kind of goes with what you're saying just there. The advice was don't be a dick and do good work. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
obviously, you mentioned in some sports you can be a dick and you're gonna get the game anyway. In wrestling, can you be a good person and do good work, and will that carry forward? I think you said something similar, but what are your thoughts on that kind of mantra?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Definitely sometimes in wrestling, it feels like, the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of situation. But there's no excuse for not being a good positive person. I think that's just the way you should live your life, and the good things will come from it. No matter what.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. I do like that positivity. Talking about that now, obviously you are digital media champion. Obviously, there's been a couple of roadblocks, and we'll talk about an upcoming feud for you in a minute. But what does it mean to be at this point in your career a champion in Impact Wrestling, digital media champion, no less? What does that mean to you at this point in your career?
I take a lot of pride in it. It's my first major singles title, and I've already had more defenses than anybody's ever had of this championship. I feel like I've raised the championship stock. You know what I mean? It's like I think I've made it a lot more important, a lot more prominent part of the show. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud to be the champion.
Yeah.
It's been a wonderful opportunity.
Good, good. And obviously, it's great to see you in that position, obviously on TV and a part of Impact. And we'll talk about messages for Impact fans here in the UK in a minute. But obviously, you are heading into a Digital Media World Championship match against Bhupinder Gujar, excuse my pronunciation. What are you excited to face Bhupinder? Obviously, you mentioned in the ring before. A very exciting talent to be in the ring with, very up and coming, and it's an exciting time on that level. But obviously, he's been meddling, he's been taking the championship, he's been stealing it. How do you feel about heading into this feud? Because it's going to be a big one.
I mean, Bhupinder, I think is going to be a big star one day. He isn't right now. and he's on his way. And trust me, he's young and he's hungry. But I mean, I'm literally in the prime of my career. I'm in my 19th year. Like I said, I take a lot of pride in being the digital media champion. I think he has a combined 200 followers on all platforms of social media. So this can't happen on my watch. And I promise you, if you tune in and see this ladder match, you're going to see a spectacle.
Absolutely, man. And obviously the ladder match. You know, you've been in the industry a long time. The ladder match is synonymous with wrestling greatness. You know, you've been in wrestling a long time. How do you feel about defending a championship in a ladder match? Because I mean, it's a cool opportunity, but it's also quite intense as well.
Yeah, it's super. It's a dangerous situation, to say the least. Uh, it's just one of those things, though. I'm actually the older I get, the more terrified of heights I get. Like, I told someone recently we had this really nice hotel rooms in New Orleans for Impact, and I opened the window on the 48th floor, and like my legs were shaking. So it's just one of those things. But in the ring, it's just like something clicks in my mind, and I become like so fearless, and I do what I have to do with the situation at hand, and that'll be no different with this ladder match. But let's not ignore that it is a very dangerous situation. But that's what we're both getting into, right?
Absolutely, Mal. I'm looking forward to watching it as well as many of the UK fans. What is your message? Because obviously, again, you have a lot of supporters all over the world. Impact has a lot of supporters all over the world, but you do. You know, again, we mentioned that the legacy and that career you've had 19 years. What is the message for your UK fans who have got behind you since the beginning of your career, watched you travel all around the world? What is your message to those fans, and what can they expect from you going forward?
I mean, obviously, I appreciate the support. I'm not stopping anytime soon. I'll be doing this for a long time. So I appreciate anyone who's been with me for a long time and those who plan on being with me for a long time. So it's without wrestling fans, there is no wrestling. And we kind of saw that firsthand in the pandemic when we're out there wrestling in empty arenas and stuff. So it's a blessing to have people be so supportive of your career. And I just want to say thank you. And I also get those people and encourage those people to get others to check out Impact Wrestling and other wrestling fans. I feel like sometimes it just gets a bad rap from years past, and I hate that because we have such a great roster and such a hardworking roster that I want people to check out Impact Wrestling if they haven't in a long time. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and obviously, aside from the Major Figure podcast, which is obviously people can see and people can find, and aside from the fact that UK fans can watch Impact on Impact Plus, what have you got to plug? Have you got anything? Do you feel like we missed anything? Is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish up?
Nah, it's okay. I mean, the Major Wrestling Figure podcast, fine. Let's give myself and Matt Cardona a chance. I think it's a pretty different show. I think people will be pleasantly surprised. It's not just about wrestling figures. You know what I mean? It's a good time, and like I said, it's been a blessing, and it's been rocking and rolling on all cylinders. Like it's grown into something that we could have never even imagined. So, and there's also Creative Pro Wrestling. That's where I'm the head coach, myself and Pat Buck here in Hicksville, Long Island. Like you said, we've trained MJF, Chris Statlander, Max Caster, some real big names in the wrestling business these days. So we're super proud of that and what we got going on there. It's been awesome.
Yeah, I just want to squeeze one in there. Obviously, you mentioned those names, incredible people on the mic. You obviously have your own reputation for that as well. What was there a lesson that you kind of imparted on both? Max Caster is a great example as well. That they've kind of you can see they've taken, even if it's not like entirely your teaching, because obviously people adapt and change to their own thing. But can you see elements of your work in their work, if you understand what I mean?
No, I don't want to take credit for any of their successes in that sense, but it's just one of those things that what I will take credit for is just teaching them that the consistency, right?
Yeah.
Putting in the hard work. I mean, especially like both those Maxes, they were like the first one's there, last one's a leave kind of thing, and it sounds cliche, but it's real. They literally, lived at that school and were like sponges and were there every day, blood, sweat, and tears, putting in the work, and now they're reaping the rewards of it. And that's just an example of how things like that can work in life.
Yeah, fantastic. And again, obviously you are digital media champion in Impact. Going back to your career now, Is there anything left for you to do? Is there anything you really want to do? Because again, you've trained people, you've won championships all over the place. Feels like to me as an outsider, as a fan, you've kind of done everything you could do. You mentioned how happy you were earlier. Is there anything else that you want to do? Anything else on your bucket list?
I think the last thing for me, and it's kind of crazy. Like I have accomplished so much, and I
Mm.
have a lot on my bucket list that it gets tough. You know, sometimes promoters will hit me up for an indie show and be like, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Man, I'd rather be home with my wife and kids at this point."
Yeah.
But I do think that a Brian Myers world title reign is the last thing, right? That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
So.
man. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
definitely excited to see it, man. And thank you so much, Brian, for your time today. Really appreciate you making the time for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys when Impact gets back over here as well. Looking forward to it, man.
Hell yeah, man.
Appreciate.
Thank you.